Oh, howdy all, grab yourself a drink. It is time for some Path of Exile discussion. Well, it is the last Sunday before the league starts over in New Zealand, and that means that there's not been that much out of GGG today. But there has been some news. There's been a new Atlas Keystone, and there's been a number of important clarifications of how mechanics work that have been explained over on the Path of Exile subreddit. So let's go through all of that, starting with Eldritch Gaze, which is probably the biggest piece of news today. Eldritch altars have one additional downside. Now, the downsides are getting reworked, and some of them will be nastier in 3.18 than they were in 3.17. They were already pretty mean, and so getting two of them for the price of one is going to hurt. But in exchange for this, you get some real power, 50% increased effect of upsides from Eldritch Altars. Ultimately, this means that the Eater of Worlds cluster is going to do about as much to juice up your map, but it's going to add more difficulty than it did in the past. I really like this design. It means that you're still going to get the same power you do now, but you're going to be paying a fair bit more for it in terms of additional difficulty. And it's a really big decision. Do I feel like I'm confident that I can handle maps that have got Eldritch Gaze active on them? And quite often the answer is going to be no. And there's going to be no shame to that. You just turn it off, you keep mapping, and then later on in the league, you get strong enough, and then you go, yoink, I will put on Eldritch Gaze now because I feel like I can handle it. The second piece of news was something that was posted that I won't show directly, but there's some changes that are coming to the way that hideouts work. And the changes are specifically to if you want to put down multiple copies of the same decoration. Pure quality of life change, it's going to be a lot easier to put down multiple copies of the same decoration at once. You just need to hold shift when you put one down and it will remember what's on your cursor so that you can then post the next one down. Very minor quality of life change, but I do think that there's a few people in Path of Exile that love their hideout manipulation, and they will find this better. Third thing is actually a bit of a meme item I found. I was running a Vale Temple and I found the talisman that has a socket in it that relies upon the socket because it's got all sorts of mods affecting the socket. Now, we've all seen unset rings that have lost their implicit. This is basically that, and this Knight's Hold has been comprehensively crangled by virtue of dropping from a Vale Temple with 2 implicit corruptions instead of its normal implicit. I have never seen a talisman drop with this sort of setup before. What I'm really curious about, though, is could you get 2 Vale implicits on a Great Wolf talisman, the Rigwald drop, because that's been added to the Drop Anywhere pool. I'd be really interested to see if anyone has a +2 curses Rigwald talisman now. I haven't heard of one, but I think that would be something pretty spectacular if it does exist. Next, there was a clarification as to how the ability to block mechanics work. For the rest of the video, we're going to be talking about the mods on the Atlas that allow you to block a specific mechanic. So there are Atlas notables that say, for instance, blight encounters don't appear in your maps and have a benefit that is you have 2% chance to encounter bonus content in each map. So these seals are among the weaker nodes on the Atlas at the moment. However, that hasn't stopped people from theory crafting various ideas for them. And as a result, there's been a couple of questions about exactly how they work. One of the important ones was, let's say that you block off blights. So you say, I'm not going to be able to get blights on my maps. And then you use a blighted scarab on a map. Or you use Fortune Favors the Brave to perhaps put a harvest onto a map after you block harvest from appearing. Both of these mechanics will work. These are not outright prohibitions on that mechanic appearing on maps. They just reduce the base chance of that mechanic appearing to 0. And that has been clarified here by Heartland from GGG. So that is definitely the way it's going to work unless there are any changes in the future. Finally, there was a fair bit of discussion about whether or not you should block Heist. Now, this is for the benefit of Trade League players who have no personal interest in running Heist contracts or Heist blueprints themselves. I just don't like the content. And there's been a fair bit of discussion, should I just block Heist and ignore Smuggler's Caches? Now, this was a screenshot that someone took. And this is a player who has leveled to level 99 through maps without many deaths. And this is the Heist stash that they put together. This is all of the loot that they got from looting every Smuggler's Cache on their way. They didn't pick up the quest contracts because they didn't want to do them, but they did pick up all of the tradable contracts that dropped, as well as all the rogue markers and all of the blueprints. So, how much is this stuff worth? There were a bunch of troll comments in there saying, oh yeah, it's an Exalt or 2 at most. But actually, I had a bit more of a serious appraisal, and a few other people have done so as well. This collection of Heist paraphernalia would be picked up instantly for 8 Exalts by a flipper. So that's someone who doesn't intend to run the content, they just intend to buy it and then resell it later at a higher price, preferably as close to instantly as possible. Flippers would buy this lot for 8 Exalts, and someone who was willing to parcel it up into sensible packages would get 12 exalts for it roughly. That's based upon the prices as they were towards the middle of the league, when deception contracts were about 11 chaos each. This person had something like 49 of them, so that was about 530 chaos. When gem blueprints were in the 50 chaos range, and when other blueprints could be in the 30-ish chaos range. Prices obviously vary over a league, so there's no guarantee that that's what you get. But what this really points out is that Heist is something that basically drops... Every smuggler's case you find is basically an exalt shard. All you need to do is just run over there, click it, pick it up, and then at some point later, go and sell them when you've got bulk. For that reason, I cannot recommend that you exclude Heist drops, because it doesn't take any time in your maps, and it's just a whole bunch of loot that you can then sell. Obviously, if you're in solo self-found and you are just not wanting to do Heist at all, well, you're not going to pick them up, and then in that case, sealing Heist might be worth your while. But if you're in Trade League, you are just leaving too much valuable loot undiscovered, and really just sabotaging your acquisition of power throughout the league. Anyways, that's all I got on this. May your Valorps have interesting results, and I will see you around.